Good to see you. I am joined today by our guest, AJ Patton. Can you give him a round of applause as he takes his seat? AJ, it's great for you to be here this morning with us. Thank you for making time out of your busy schedule to spend time at Judson for us with Chapel. I know that you were with an architecture class this morning, and you have more stuff afterwards. I mean, you have a really impressive resume. I'll rattle things off and embarrass you just a little bit. You have 15 years of experience in investment banking, managing endowments, real estate analysis and development. You've worked in underwriting for a $500 million investment fund. You've started your own development and capital investment company called 548 Enterprises. You've been named Midwest Energy's 40 Under 40. And you're on all kinds of councils and boards across Chicago, including our very own World Leaders Forum. So behind each one of these interests and accomplishments is a story for why you chose to spend your time there. So I'd like to begin there. Like, why did you choose to go into development? Why are you even here this morning? Let's kick it off there.
Why am I here? I came mostly because President Kroom gives me really good advice. So I came to get some advice from the dear leader. And thank you, Dr. Kroom, for having me. And thanks for inviting me. Why? In 1999, my mother received a $400 gas bill. She was making $10 an hour. And unfortunately, we got our gas shut off. And so for approximately a year, I had to boil water to take a bath. Now, that sounds like a story from the 1800s, but that was just 1999 for me and my family. Fast forward, when I was working at one of the firms that you had mentioned, I had considered what is my calling and what I wanted to do with the rest of my life and my career and what impact I wanted to leave. And so I started 548 to serve as the bridge for sustainable technologies to lower the utility bills for everyday people, because I wanted no one to ever have to boil water to take a bath again. And so I started this company to build energy efficient, solar powered, really sustainable housing that everyone could live in that was very affordable. And so that's kind of the original story that's got me started.
I've heard in interviews that you've given, you did not start fresh out of college with this vision to major on sustainability and equity. And I remember you telling a story about some individuals were kind of pitching you some ideas that you had to underwrite, and you said, well, I was the one they needed approval from, so I started asking them all kinds of questions. In the process, I was developing this idea for sustainability. Can you tell us a little bit about how you even got to the point where you were like, I think I can actually address this problem in Chicago? Because that's a huge gap from the story that you tell, the meaningful story that you tell from your childhood and seeing your grandmother to actually managing a development fund. How do you go from here to there?
You've done your research. Thank you. Here's the story, and I think we can take something from this. So I was a VP of a company, and essentially the only way they could get to the partners is if I kind of stamped it to move forward. And so this was a national company who's kind of floating around. They do these big solar farms. And they pitched us a solar farm. And essentially they were selling all the energy to Google and Target. And I posed a question. I think this is something we can all walk away with, is just asking a question. And I said, hey, why don't you sell that discounted energy to everyday people? And the CEO looked at me, and he was really conflicted because I was just some 20-something. Who did he have to listen to? But then he realized that the only way he could get to the next level is if he, at least if I, answered my questions. And he said, well, AJ, the problem is that if we power those communities, we'd have to go find the building owners and then have to, find all these individual people with their utility bills. And it's just a lot of work, and no one is doing this. And so I sat back and I said, well, and he said, whoever starts that company is going to change the market forever. And within 6 months, I quit my job, and I started 548 with just that purpose, to build the energy and to build the housing in the communities and power them with clean energy. And so, it all started with just asking the question.
Wow. For you to go from pretty, probably cushy gig.
Yeah.
A pretty cushy gig to quitting your job to start this company. How did you take that step of faith?
That's a
Like you bet, like you do a number of things. You bet on yourself. You took a step of faith. You were like, we can actually do this. You believed the guy, what he was telling you. How did you even take that step?
great point. Ironically, I went home. I'm from a small town in Indiana, and I told my parents and grandparents, and I have a picture of me telling them. They're devastated. Like, you got this good job. What are you doing? You're quitting what to start this company, and you're naming it after the projects that we were in. Like, what are you doing? I was walking out on faith. I genuinely believed that God had called me to serve as this bridge. And I thought that this company made sense. I thought it could be something, and I thought I was the right messenger for it. What then happened, which is kind of part two of the story, is I went out to the marketplace, and I went from Connecticut to San Francisco talking to all the major investors and said, I believe solar-powered housing is the future, and I think the company I'm building is the right vehicle and vessel for it. And for the most part, they told me no. And they were a little concerned that some guy from Indiana in Chicago was the right kind of intersection for it. And so, ironically, I went broke. And so I had the big cushy job and all the good material things, if you will. And I went entirely broke. And then what happened is, in that process, I stayed so close to the mission. I believed in what I was doing so much that instead of getting a job from 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. and from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., I drove Uber. And so I'd get up, I'd put my suit on, and I would drive Uber for almost 10 hours a day, and I had a sign in the back of my car, in the back of the seat, that said, I have a solar startup, ask me questions. And I hear some people laughing. This is a true story. And for months, while trying to build this company, I was the Uber driver. And people were thinking, my Uber driver has a solar startup? And I met a ton of people that way. I stayed focused on the mission. I kept working on the business plan. I kept talking to investors. And then the movie Black Panther came out. And a young guy gets in the car, and I'm his driver, taking him to go see Black Panther. And he's like, you really got a solar startup? And I'm giving him my quick pitch, gives him his business card, and we go have coffee, and 6 months later, he wrote me a check for $2 million.
Whoa.
And
I have not heard that story before.
Oh, I thought you already knew
In my
that.
research, I did not find that
Yeah,
story.
so-
I would have asked a question about that.
No, so he is one of my best friends now to this day. I was in his wedding in Calabasas, and I was at his wedding in Calabasas, and I met half the people on my board are some of the biggest people in Metro Chicago. I was their Uber driver.
Wow.
And it is a testament to God and to my faith there, that even when people were in my Uber, kind of snickering in the back like this Uber, what is this guy?
joker.
What does this guy got, right? I stayed faithful.
Wow.
And there were times I called Dr. Kroom and still trying to figure it out, and calling a lot of people to say, I got something, but it hasn't broken through yet. But Oliver got in the car one day, and it's a God-fearing Christian man. He's just one of my best friends now to this day. And he would be my best friend if he didn't give me the check. But that was the seed, that $2 million. And I never forgot that, because the company has now grown, and we're probably 200 times that size now, frankly. But that was the start, and that was the seed investment that got us there, and God's direction was pretty consistent there.
Wow. That's unbelievable. So I want to go back to that moment really quick. When he cuts you a check for $2 million, what are the first three thoughts that run through your mind?
You're always questioning if God is using you as an example of what to be or what not to be, right? If I'm being really honest, because I'm thinking about, you always kind of figure out if I'm just like a useful tool and vessel. And so, one, I knew when he wrote me that check that I needed to One, I would go to the ends of the earth to make sure I did not embarrass him and do well by it. But I knew that I was a man on a mission. I knew that I was going to create jobs. I was going to create housing that was affordable and sustainable, and there was nothing that was going to stop me. And I knew that I had the moral high ground and God's backing, and I was a man on a mission. So I was gone. As soon as they cut that check, I was out the door, ready to work. I had a business plan. I was over-prepared. I had every resource already back behind me. All I needed was rocket fuel for this rocket, and I was gone.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So let's talk a little bit about sustainability and equity. This chapel is taking place during our Race and Justice series. Why sustainability and equity in Chicago, and what circumstances? Like my gas bill is not $400.
Okay, good.
You know what I mean? Like my gas bill isn't $400. What situation, and we have a house, so what situation makes it so that there's a $400 gas bill and that brought you to sustainability and equity in the location that you did? Like what are some of the surrounding circumstances around which?
Good question. So I think two parts. One is low-income families disproportionately use their income to pay for utilities, because they live in inefficient homes. So those homes are not well insulated, those aren't quality windows, quality roofing, efficient HVAC systems, et cetera. And so I think part one is just making those major capital investments to make the buildings run more efficiently. So I think that's step one, right? Part two, and so what I wanted was to use my company and those investments and investors to make those capital improvements so that those buildings ran better. That was part one. I did that. In the process of doing that, what I thought was going to be my impact, I was wrong. And so in that, I found my real impact was equally as such, who got those jobs? Every time I did something, it was an opportunity for others. And I think that's a lesson for all of us is you may be having some successes, but in that, who else benefits from that? And I think that's the true test of success. Any of us, frankly, any of us could be successful in a vacuum. I was going to be fine regardless. I could have went off and been an executive, lived a good life, and did my thing. With 548, what we're doing is creating opportunities for others. And every single development that I have, I'm creating space for others to just excel. Whether it's an emerging female architect or a person of color leading on construction or on the banking and lending side, we're creating opportunities for others, and I'm being intentional about it. I'm not being shy about it. I wear it as a badge of honor that every time I do something, it's a Trojan horse for somebody else to get an opportunity.
Wow. You have a pretty big ceremony coming up. Initially, we had this scheduled for Friday, and we had to move some things around, and luckily a few things worked out. We were able to move this chapel to Wednesday and then Wednesday's chapel to Friday. What do you have coming up on Friday?
Yeah, thanks. So this Friday we're we're breaking ground on a $80 million industrial development in the west side of Chicago. We're creating 200 new jobs. We're building a 3-megawatt community solar on top of the industrial development that will power 500 homes at a 50% discount to the utility. And so on Friday, my days are all weird. So this Friday with Mayor Lori Lightfoot, we'll be breaking ground on that project.
Wow.
So I'm really proud of that.
That's unbelievable. How many years in the making is this?
It's about a year and a half. We've been working pretty diligently on it. We've got a big team. We've thrown a lot of bodies at it, and so really, really proud of it. And ironically, it's kind of an interesting location because it's the site of an old illegal dump. So people illegally used to dump trash there to the point that it was 7 stories high, and the debris from the wind would blow onto these low-income families' homes, and the dust would give the community asthma and so forth. We've cleared that site. Now it will create 200 jobs. We're putting 2 community centers at the front, 2 industrial buildings in the back, and we're covering it all with solar and giving the energy to the community at 50% off.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. Dang. One of the things we talk about, it's a passion area of mine, is As Christians, we believe in the redemptive power that God brings to all avenues of work, where we are motivated and we are equipped with our faith so that no matter where you end up, you are a minister of reconciliation. So you have a redemptive power moving forward. What does it look like for you merging faith and work in an intentional way that moves beyond the mission, or maybe it's embedded in the mission? Like, what does your faith look like with your work?
Yeah, that's a man. I could do an hour on that.
Go for it.
I could do an hour on that.
We're in.
Because I think it's a couple of things. I think there's two parts. I think one is me being really intentional about not judging where people are in their story, because I've been at the depths of poverty and trying to make ends meet and making really difficult choices that at times I may not have been very proud of, but understanding that people come out of that are still evolving, and God is still working on people in their maturation and extending them the same grace that I was extended, right? And so I think we have to be careful about judging people about where they are in their current state and meeting people where they are. And I shouldn't even gesture down. I should just straightforward, just meeting people where they are. Secondarily, trying to be consistent in the application of my principles. Who I am on Tuesday is who I am on Saturday when I got 3 drinks in me, is the same person I am when I'm yelling at the ref on Sunday, is the same person I am doing pull-ups at 7 a.m. in the morning, right? And trying to be as consistent in there, because I think what I have found is that in that continuity you can find some inspiration, and then people start to figure out, hey, there's something going on there, right? And the people that I know that are most consistent and disciplined, you can see their faith exude through that.
Yeah.
I think where there are inconsistencies and lack of discipline, then you can see where, maybe they still need to find themselves and get anchored somewhere. And because my faith has anchored me, it allows me to be consistent. And then that process, I'm sorry to be preachy today, but...
Go for it.
But
mic's open,
floor's
open.
Part of that consistency spits out the positive outcomes, right? And so one of the things that I really have been intentional about with my mentees is create a process and live in that process and be proud of that process, because then that will create the outcome that you want. You cannot get, using fitness as an example, you cannot get in shape, the type of great shape you want, by working out once a week and being responsible with your diet just on Tuesday and then binge eating the rest of the week. You need to be consistent in that application. And so I would challenge people that they want great outcomes, but they don't want to be consistent in that application. And then secondarily, in parallel to that, people ask me about wanting great things and great outcomes, but they're not prepared to make the necessary compromises. Don't tell me what you want to accomplish. Tell me what you're willing to sacrifice, and then we'll see. That will show you what you can yield. Right? It is a 1-for-1 ratio of sacrifice to outcome. And so I had to humble myself. I knew who I was. I've been very, very successful in my early 20s. I was successful in college. I had a very good profile. I humbled myself to be an Uber driver. People got in that car, and I could hear them snickering and laughing, and the girls like, oh, he's cute, but he's an Uber driver. I could hear all of that. It didn't. I heard it a million times. But being consistent and anchored in who I was, it didn't shake. And you've got to anchor down in that. And if you truly believe that you're working with divine direction, and you stay in that, that will guide you where you're supposed to go.
Wow.
Sorry, I'm preaching this morning.
No, I'm telling you, take it. One of the things that we find is that we are motivated by our faith, and that if we believe that God is behind us, we believe that God has actually given us a vision for a community or a people, then there's nothing stopping that. There's also this chorus of voices that surround us that are actually informing and mentoring and helping us to give clarity with what we're thinking and things that we can bring things to. And one of the things I was told from President Kroom is that you actually have a long history with President Kroom. Way before you started 548, way before you moved to Chicago. Can you tell us a little bit about the significance of mentorship for you and the story with that you and President Kroom share?
I'll work my way to President Kroom. So God has been consistent. I grew up in a single-parent home, and what happened was God was really intentional about the people he put in my life at different timelines. So I had a really good mentor and a person that just took an interest of me and in me in middle school. And as you guys know, those teenage years are really intentional. I grew up in a kind of a gang neighborhood, a GD neighborhood, so it was kind of a unique time. And in middle school, I had a good mentor. The same with high school. The local janitor kind of put his arm around me and made sure I didn't go the wrong way. And there was a couple of mentors in high school, and then a gentleman named John Newton. I should say these people's names. So it was Neil Dickerson. Hands me off to Leonard Hutchison, who was the local janitor, and God was speaking through that janitor at different times so you can receive God's message from anyone. Let me side note just for 1 second.
Take it.
My uncles and every man in my family had died or gone to prison from drug and alcohol abuse to a person, every single one. Wow. I was the first one to even get a driver's license, let alone graduate high school, I've seen bigger, I graduated college. I've seen bigger welcome home from prison parties than my college graduation party. I mean, it's just totally skewed perspective where I'm from. You can get lessons from anyone. I've learned that from the janitor to a recovering addict to whoever, God is using everyone. So I'm going to close with this eventually, but you're going to preempt to my closing is listen. Listen. To that point, I went from the middle school to high school. I had Leonard Hutchison, who was the janitor. I'm going to say his name. John Newton, who is he's my godfather now, and he kind of helped me through the college years because no one in my family had gone to college. I didn't know what a dorm. My mother sent me with a case, a trunk with 2 pillows, 2 towels, and a bar of soap, and told me come home with a college degree. Wow. It's a true story. And 2 gallons of water. I'll die remembering that. I still have that trunk to this day. I may give it to my son. John, I was getting ready for law school, and John Newton hands me to Dr. Kroom. Dr. Kroom was the president of the foundation at my alma mater, Indiana State. And once again, really intentional mentorship. And so I was getting ready for law school. I was broke, as always, broke college kid. Dr. Kroom offered me a job, allowed me to save face. And I was essentially Dr. Kroom's bodyguard. I just was his, hold the coats, hold the door, drive him around. No, I'm kidding a little bit, kind of. And so, but Dr. Kroom he's a unique intersection of someone who does, a university president who has some private sector experience intersecting with faith. And that is rare. And then he had, in these really private moments where we'd be stuck on a highway where the GPS sent us the wrong way, I'd get 3 hours with Dr. Kroom, and at 25 years old, that was pretty life-changing. So him and I have been close ever since, and I've always kind of used him as a great resource for me personally since about 15 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's an incredible power. One of the things that we talk about in my speech class, so this will be a review for those of you, like half the freshman classes who have to take me. There's an incredible resource in the coaches and leaders and presidents and professors who want to invest in you. We are here to invest in you. Educators are not driven by money. Educators are driven because, those of you who are here, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We're not driven by money. We're driven because we get the opportunity to shape and change the next generation of young people. We get the opportunity to mentor and walk alongside you. And though you may sleep in our classes, though you may sleep in chapel, we hold out an incredible hope that you are the kinds of people who will come back 15 years later and go, I remember this one thing that you said. And so if there's anything that you take away from my portion, there's plenty you can take away from AJ's portion. It's to make sure that you're investing, you're surrounding yourself with the right kinds of people, with the right kinds of leaders and mentors who actually care about you beyond your grade, who will give you the grade you deserve, but who will care about you beyond that. AJ, I want to turn it back to you versus my preaching point.
Okay, no, it's good.
They got enough. They got
together.
enough of me. They got enough of me. One of the things that we've hinted at is a theme of legacy. You've talked about legacy. You mentioned at a number of points leaving something behind. You still have a lot of years ahead of you, God willing. And yet, at this early stage in your career, at this point where you seem extremely successful, you're already thinking about legacy. Why? And what legacy do you want to leave behind?
Yeah, that's two really good questions. What I would like and what we'll see what the legacy will be. But I think in general, and it's not for us to write, but I care a lot about people and creating opportunities for others. And that's what I really think both the 548 companies are for, and our foundation and our trust will, I hope that will be the lasting legacy. I've spent a lot of time on this thought, frankly, and it's part of the other reasons why I came out here is I wanted to spend some time with you guys and spend some time with my mentor, because I've spent a lot of thought on legacy. Also, I have a son, and starting a family will start to really make you think about, what am I leaving, and how is God using me, and how can I impact this young man himself, and all of that. And so, I hope that I leave a legacy of caring for others and wanting to help others accomplish their goal and their goals. I don't know why it's kind of hitting me so hard this particular year, but that's where I'm at. I'm a little bit at a loss for words because, frankly, I'm doing a lot of self-exploration about that and where this intersection of being a dad, being a community leader, being a founder of a company, what do all those things mean, and how does that intersect with legacy, and should I even be caring about that, and should I just be doing the work? And, the impact, let it just be, right? Those should all be those, and frankly, leaving God the glory. Should I even be thinking about where I sit in this whole thing and just leaving God the glory, right? And so I think all those are things that have been in my mind at 3 a.m. while I'm scrolling Twitter. Got a question. I don't know if you want, we'll wait for questions or somebody raise their hand.
Someone raise their hand?
Yeah.
Oh, hello. I like this. All right, what question you got?
I just wanted to know, after you made your $2 million investment, how long it took you to receive your return investment after you put that in?
A business question.
Wow.
There you go. How long did it take me? Good question. How long did it take me? That's a good question. It took about 2.5 years. A lot of that was due to COVID, frankly. We probably would have, without COVID, it probably would have took us about 18 months. It took us about 2+ years. COVID kind of stretched everything out. So, and there's a whole business case around major capital improvements around real assets. If you're going to invest in real estate and solar infrastructure, it's going to take 6 to 10 months of planning, a year of construction, 6 months of lease up. So it's a 2-year horizon, which we were talking about the project that breaks ground on Friday. We did a year plus of planning. We'll break ground tomorrow or Friday. It'll take us about 10, 11 months of construction. Same thing with lease. At least it'll probably be much shorter because it's industrial. So not to full nerd out on business stuff, but yeah, the bigger investments take time. And in case there are a handful of people interested in business, I would just challenge you to be very wary of these kind of short-term, quick flip type of investment thesis. Push back on all that. The longer, slower way is the way to build real wealth. Anything that's quick, you should be very, very reticent to jump into. The people that have really built sustainable wealth that has lasted more than one generation, I'm talking more than just make some money and buy a charger and get some sneakers. I'm talking about real wealth that transcends generations. That takes time. That takes real time. And we've built, and that takes real infrastructure as a business and as your personal infrastructure in terms of who's your accountant, who's your investment manager, who's your lawyer and does your personal infrastructure. So be very wary of these, I can make you 6x over 6 months. Be very, very wary of those things.
I think that takes us to where I'd like to land us, and that's actually letting you land us. What do you want to leave? You have a room full of young people who are budding scholars, business people, educators. What do you have for us? Where would you like to leave us?
Two things, coalition and listening. I think the most powerful thing that we've built with 548 is that we built a coalition of diverse-minded people. Diversity is not just what you look like or who you pray to or what food you eat. It's what's your process of thinking and approach to solving the world's problems. And so I would challenge you, this is the most diverse room you'll probably ever be in for the rest of your life. I challenge you to build a coalition together because there's nothing you cannot accomplish as a group. The moment 548 had its breakthrough moment is when I made it less about me and my company and more about the larger we. And so every time we have these groundbreaking moments, there's 25 different companies that get to celebrate. That momentum compounds. Everyone feels like they're the winner and that they're the headliner. And that success begets success. So I challenge you to think about how can you win without necessarily taking credit for it? And how can you create wins that everyone can grab onto and claim as theirs as well? And that's a very, very attractive quality of many of you are on sports teams. It's a very, very attractive quality when you can do well as a group and not necessarily need to be the headliner. The second thing is listen. We have, throughout time, we have had great orators, generation to generation. There have been tons of great speakers. Who's the great listener of our time? And so I challenge you to be one of the best listeners in your group. Listen to what's being said, listen to what's being alluded to and what's not being said, and do the hard part of just being quiet and sitting in that moment and saying, what's being said? What can I take from this for me? Everything that was said today may not be for you, but there was something there that you can grab onto and take with you. And make sure you created a space for yourself to listen and find it. Find it, grab it, take it, and make it yours. Because too often everybody wants to be the talker. Everybody wants to stick their chest out and be the influencer of the day and all that good stuff. But someone needs to be compiling these thoughts and compiling all the things that's going on that way that you can lead. You can't lead with words, you lead with action. I don't want to be the great speaker. I speak a ton, probably frankly too much, but I'm not good on social media. I don't do really well in some of the look at me things, but I work. I go to work. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of my work ethic. I'm passionate about the work ethic. I'm passionate about listening about what's going on and filling the void where there are voids. And you've got to be able to listen and grab that. And so if I can leave you with anything, is build a great coalition and listen.
Wow. Can we thank AJ for his time? I appreciate you spending time with us. Thank you for giving up your morning and leaving some really thoughtful things for us. I'll pray us out and then we'll dismiss. Father, I'm grateful not only for AJ, but the calling that you've put on his life to be a change agent towards sustainability and equitability. Thank you for the vision for Chicago and beyond and the way that he can step into this space and share not only some inside baseball, but share the faith that motivates him. I am grateful that the same spirit that motivates him is in our student body and on our campus. And I pray that if there's a student that has a vision for what you could be doing with them beyond here, motivated by some of what AJ has shared, that you would give them the courage to take that next step, and it might be driving Uber. Thank you for this morning. Thank you for the opportunities that we have. We love you. Into Christ and we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. You're dismissed.